Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Maverick Mystic Arts podcast. And today we'll be continuing with our exploration of Franz Bardon's initiation into Hermetics, Step 8. So this is the training on the schooling of the physical. Now, while this isn't necessarily the physical body in terms of like bodily training, it's using the physicality of the elements as they manifest physically in nature, as well as fluid condensers, which again are actual fluids, not of the, say, vital or astral or mental realms, but of the physical world. And so when we begin exploring ritual from the perspective of the physical implements, there can be a lot of power to it. Now, Franz Bardon and anyone who's quite developed, he recommends this. But anyone, as you develop, you'll recognize that the ritual, eventually you don't need it. And if your skill is strong enough and developed enough, then you don't need the ritual. You can go directly to the manifestation of the ritual in its physical expression without needing the physical implements. Okay, now the value of physical implements is that they can help to direct the focus through a particular energy, through a particular type of intention, etc. So you end up using both, and there's a lot of power, as I said, in the physical ritual. So, looking at the properties of combustion, what Bardon refers to as combustion, evaporation, mixing, and putrefaction, or, well, the earth element, so we'll use putrefaction for that. These are ways in which you can express the intention through the element very, very directly. So we split these into fire, air, water, earth, fire being to combustion, air being to evaporation, water being to mixture, and earth being to putrefaction. So when you are wanting to express something or give something over to an element, an elemental energy, you can use these processes or these simple rituals, okay? So, behind this, before we get into the specifics of each ritual, behind this is the principle of surrender, of the giving up or giving over to. So you have the intention, right? You load it into the element, and then you give that intention over to the element. And through these rituals, it is an expression of that surrendering of your particular identity and ego in relationship to the intention, and the giving over of that, or the surrender of that, to the element itself. So, the first example is the fire element, and the more work you've done with the fire element, the more you will understand how you might work with this. Okay, now what Bardon suggests is you take a piece of paper, you saturate it with the fire fluid condenser. We'll get into that later in this video, or a universal fluid condenser. Then you load that fluid condenser, which is saturating the paper. You saturate the fluid condenser and the paper with the intention or the thing you might want to balance out or work with in the fire element. And my suggestion is you spend some good time in the beginning really learning how to give that intention, how to pass that idea that you might want to work with into the paper, into the fluid condenser, right, with the fire element. And once you've done this, you then burn it. So that's me lighting a lighter. You burn the paper. and it goes up in flames. And as you burn it, as it burns, you surrender the intention into the fire element itself. Now, behind this is, as we mentioned, the surrender, and also there's a pathway of expression where any time that the object of your intention is exposed to the fire element, and this is where you use your relationship to the fire element, right? The more refined that is, the more nuanced it is, the more variety you have in terms of this expression. So whenever the object of the intention is exposed to the fire element, it could be in any spectrum, but Bardon specifically refers to the physical realms, then that intention will be imbued through that exposure to the fire element into the object of the intention. Okay, so there's a lot of power in this type of stuff in terms of its ability to affect the physical. And there's a lot of components involved. One of the chief ones, as mentioned, is surrender, giving over to the element itself, the intention. Okay, and this is something that you can explore. The fire element is fairly easy to work with. Now, when you're doing the combustion, having some type of open flame is, typically the best for this. We really want to use the efficacy of the physical element itself. So, you could probably light a stove, like a wire electrical stove, hot enough that it would, you could put paper to it and it would light a flame. But for these particular exercises, an open flame, say like a lighter or a match or a candle, something that is an open burning flame where you actually have everything that's involved in the combustion process and creating fire is being used to light the paper afire and light the fluid condenser. So they're burning. So there's layer after layer after layer of combustion occurring. Okay, so of course there's a million different options in terms of how you might do this and how you might use this. But this is enough to get you started, right? And as you develop with this work, the options become quite infinite. And as you keep developing, of course, the need for these types of rituals dissipates. But that doesn't mean that you might not use them as a means of like easy funneling of energy and intention and all of the astral components, right? So let's move on to the next one, which is the evaporation. And so this is more or less the same. You have your your air element based fluid condenser or your universal fluid condenser. You can pour that, a little bit of that, into some water that you might scoop up from a stream or a river or something. You pour some of the fluid condenser into the water, and then you load that with the intention, or you load just the fluid condenser with the intention. And the thing, the air, no, we're doing air element. Okay, so the air element, again, you load that fluid condenser. It could just be a couple drops of the fluid condenser itself. You would take a frying pan of sorts, something that will get very hot. You heat it again over open flame, and then you would pour some of that intention imbued fluid condenser into the pan of sorts. It's very hot and it evaporates, right? So the evaporation is the transition, right? Air element is to anything that is transition and change, that flux point, right? And it evaporates into the air. And so again, you give this intention, you surrender the intention through to the air element. What's interesting is that the fire element is the mechanism of the air element, which is very interesting. All the elements tend to whirl through themselves. So the more that you work with the elements, the more you will have very, very clear understanding and like tangible relationships to these shifts and changes. So that air element intention evaporates and you surrender it to the power of the air element itself. And of course, the expression of this would be anytime the object of intention is exposed to the air element. And this, again, can be in a whole myriad of ways. The more deep your relationship with the air element, the more refined the moments in which this intention can express from the air element into the object of the intention, right, in that meditation. So again, we have surrender. We have surrender to the air element. We have surrender of the intention, right? And then we have the mechanism of transfer, which is the evaporation process, right? So next is the water element, which is to mixing. And this was what I was starting to get into before, which is you would take some water from, say, a river, like a flowing source, right? A river, a stream, as one option, right? Then you pour some of your fluid condenser into the water. You imbue the fluid condenser in the water with that intention, whatever it might be, that is an intention that will be directed through the use of the water element. To surrender it, right, you would then, Bardon uses the word ecstatically, throw the water that's in your bowl with the fluid condenser and the intention into, say, the river, a flowing river. You are giving over of that intention. You are giving over that imbued water and fluid condenser and intention to the powers of the water element itself. And that is being washed through the moving river. So the movement is very, very interesting here. Okay, now this could be done, of course, not in a stream or in a river. It could be done in a tide, the ocean. However, the movement makes a big difference. So surf would be really a good thing to use for this if you're going to use the ocean, big surf, waves. And of course the movement of rivers, really, really good. You could use bigger bodies of water, lakes, etc. But it does seem to be that the movement is an important aspect of this. Fresh moving water as opposed to down a drain, right? If you're using this as a ritual, you want it to be clean and related to the elements, as the elements are what you are using for this. Okay, so you have the giving over, the surrender. Again, ki. I keep repeating it because it is so key. Surrendering the intention through the implement that you have to the water element itself. Okay. The last is putrefaction, which is to the earth element. And this can be done in a couple ways. One is to imbue the fluid condenser, specific or universal, with the object of intention, right? With the intention, with the intention. And then you can pour that into some dirt, right? Just a few drops is all you need. Clean, right? Clean dirt. Go somewhere that is in the middle of nowhere, as opposed to the side of a road. If you have potted plants at home, you could use that. The other option is like, I think it was dig a hole into a potato or some type of vegetable, and then you pour the fluid condenser into that and you bury that. The idea is that you are using the earth itself, the soils, to connect to the earth element. Okay, and then of course, anytime the object of the intention is exposed to the earth element through your relationship with the earth element, however refined that might be, same as with the fire, same as with the air, same as with the waters, same now with the earth, then this intention can, through the earth element, meet the object of the intention and do its work. Now, you have initial reactions to this, or initial expressions of how you want this to function in each of the elements. You have a time frame duration, or you might have a type of a permanent relationship. Typically, that permanence has some type of decay process to it that you can use in terms of how you explore this, or imbuing a type of relationship with that once that element has done its work and equalized whatever you're planning for it to do in the object of that intention, that it settles out, and that you're no longer functioning. That intention gets essentially dissolved fully, right, once it's equalized within the object of the intention. Okay, so these all involve specific ritual that involves actual physical stuff. And I found that doing these types of rituals, whether it's washing type rituals or whatever, can have really profound effects immediately on the physical body itself if you're using this for yourself, or the mental or the astral, very, very directly. I found that one sleep cycle, like with most things with learning, it seems to be that when I wake up the next day, that I really feel the big shift. Okay, now there's a lot of different rituals that exist out there. Most systems, shamanic, various types are very much focused on the physical ritual, and there's a lot of power in it. Now, we do not want to succumb to the ritual, and we, at the same time, do not want to sweep the importance of a physical ritual under the rug with, our own egoistic type of attachment to, oh, I'm too good for ritual, I don't need it. You might not, but even in that space where you don't need the physical ritual, there are certainly times in which it might be very useful for you. So it is a tool just like everything else, and we do not want to attach to it. We also don't want to undermine it as something that is insignificant or unimportant. Okay, so I think that's good for that particular section. And if you're interested in training, I have a workshop coming up in June 2025 here in British Columbia, Canada. This is a level 1 and 2 spiritual attunement retreat. There's a lot of fun stuff we'll be doing in that. And we have the online training programs in both Tai Chi and the Qi Gong Hermetics and meditation program. Of course, there is the Zenden, which is a Q&A video reference library. So any questions you have on the programs, I get video answers up to you as soon as I'm able. And anyone who is interested in online private coaching, private lessons, private learning and instruction, we can go through that online as well. Okay, thanks for your time. Hope you enjoyed this. Thank you. Bye.